Hey folks, Brandon Vigliarola with the Register, and I'm here today with Brian Rothamel, Director of the Economic Development Department in Culpeper County, Virginia, to talk about data center development in his jurisdiction, which is rather near to the U.S. Capitol and data center hotbed of Washington, D.C. Brian, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, totally. So, when I first joined the Register back in 2022, one of my first stories I wrote was about an Amazon data center project in Culpeper back in 2022. Things weren't going great with that. I believe it was a 243-acre development that was getting some pretty strong contesting from locals. It was a rural development that was a lot of locals were concerned it was being spot zoned. They were worried about environmental concerns and noise, worry. I understand the Culpeper Tech Zone, this 690-acre chunk that you're talking about, might be a different project, but I'm just kind of curious because we're talking data center development in your county. Whatever ended up happening with that Amazon project? Is that still on, or was it canceled? What can I get an update on that?
Yeah, so that was approved. That's under construction. Okay. We're looking forward to that coming online. That process, yes, it was over 200 acres, the whole parcel. They're only developing a very small portion of that 200. But we learned a lot through that process. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we were going through our comprehensive plan review for the whole county. And in that, we said, hey, as we move forward in this data center collection or conversation, we want this to be closer to what we call town environs, which is the environment around our urban center, which is the town of Culpeper. So as we went through, we took from 5 tech zones down to 4. And then we went a little bit further along. In November 2023, we said, we're happy with one single tech zone in the center of our county, which is right around the town of Culpeper. So we learned a lot through the process. We felt like this was good refining and a good place for our future data center developments.
Cool. So it's more adjacent to the town of Culpeper then, as opposed to being more rural like the Amazon data center, basically.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And I understand that the one zone you've settled on is 690 acres or so, give or take, right? So is that a, since you went from, 5 zones to 4 to 1, is this one zone you stuck with? Is it has it been expanded to increase its capacity since you went with 1? Or did you realize that the single zone at 690 acres was all you're going to need?
It's primarily the McDevitt, what previously was known as the McDevitt Technology Zone. What we've done is we took one parcel that was we had 3 that kind of all touched each other. They were all adjacent. So we took one parcel or one section from a southern one and combined it into the center one. Mm-hmm. And we felt that was our best way this has made the most sense. The best part for us is this is where the infrastructure already was. We already have a power corridor that comes into this area. We felt we could minimize a lot of issues if we have one. Solving a problem for one area is a lot easier than trying to solve for 4 areas.
Yeah, exactly. And when you've got that existing infrastructure there, right, it just makes so much more sense to redesignate that space. What was there before, if I can ask? Was it always industrial space or commercial?
It was not. We have 2 data centers already in this zone. Mm-hmm. We have our community college and we have our career and technical education. Both campuses are located, just happen to be alongside in this zone. So it was previously an area that we had always looked for industrial development to occur. As the data center conversation heated up, it just made the most sense that we group them all together. It allows us to think of them a little bit more collectively and to solve a problem, all sorts of problems, not just from an infrastructure standpoint, but also from a workforce standpoint, from transportation and vendors that needed to service these. We can do a lot, and keeping it narrowly focused made a lot of sense.
Right. So, it might, this question may have been addressed by the fact that, like you said, this is more of an urban development zone than something that's more on the outskirts. But, I'm thinking about Prince William County, right, which is, I believe, just like a hop, skip, one county over maybe from where you're at right now. And they're also a big data center, development area. And they have this thing called the Prince William Digital Gateway, right, which was this huge, I can't remember the size of it now. I think in scope and scale, it was kind of similar to this tech zone you guys are talking about. I think the idea was to put a bunch of data centers on it. It had existing infrastructure and what have you. But it got a lot of pushback from locals, kind of like that Amazon project. I mean, has there been, because I know data centers can be loud, they can be noisy, they can be, expensive. I mean, they could also create jobs and do lots of positive things for local economy. But has there been pushback from locals on the tech zone? Has anyone been opposed to it from like a environmental or sort of just nuisance perspective?
The conversation has been much different when we've looked at keeping it in what is now just the Culpeper Tech Zone, previously the Tech Zone. This is an area that we planned for. This is an area that has been identified in our comprehensive plan. It was included in the 2023 comprehensive plan that, as someone said it, we have a rezoning happening right now, and a public speaker said, this was our plan and this is where they should go. And it's kind of limited. The thing about the Tech Zone is primarily it's an incentive area. It's an area that we say, if you go here and you do this function, we'll help incentivize that.
Right.
But also when we talk about the CTZ, like I said, we want to think of it as its kind of own little organism that we can help with the workforce. We can help with all those items. And keeping that in that one area makes sense because it's a lot easier to handle. I think the most difficult thing that communities have all across is kind of deciding where you want, what you want, how you want it to look like. And it's easy to say that's not what we want. It's hard to say this is what we want. And we've told the industry and we've told industry partners, like, we're thinking more here and this makes more sense to us. And they've seemed to appreciate that. They've appreciated that conversation. We're not a great fit for every developer. We're not a great fit. We're obviously limited on size and scope and land that's currently zoned industrial. We did have a few that had to get rezoned and go through that process, but they said, hey, this is what your plan was. Does this line up with what you guys are thinking? And they've gone through and been successful when they've gone to the zone with minimal, or I shouldn't say minimal, with a lot fewer conversations like we had when we went a little bit more rural.
Right. And so I guess, so there's 2 tenants there right now. How many do you have planned? I think, was there like 5 or so on the list I saw?
So currently we have 2 that are been in operation, Swift and Equinix. They've been in operation for many years, Swift for longer, the longest. We have 5 campuses and a 6th going through the process now. Fantastic.
So I guess that raises the question of, like you mentioned, capacity, right? You have limited space. 690 acres is a lot of room, right? But I mean, how much of this is going to be occupied at this point? Once all those get built, like what percentage is left, right, to be allocated still?
This last rezoning will be our last unclaimed land.
Okay.
So our last, and that's going to be the last 60 acres. In the zone, though, it includes, like I said, our community college. So it includes all that land. That's not going to be developed for a data center. It includes our career education center. That's going to stay there. It also includes a wastewater plant. Taking those out of the map would make the map look kind of silly. So we've included them. But, of the 630, we're probably looking about each campus is around 100 acres, give or take. So you have a leftover about 90 acres, 100 acres. Right. So,
but basically, data center wise, you're at capacity on that space, right?
Yes. In the tech zone, this will be the end of what we've incentivized and where we've encouraged them to go.
Right. Obviously, this doesn't preclude further data center development, right? Because like you said, it's just an incentive area. But I mean, there's a question in Washington, D.C., right? And you guys, I think, are probably far enough away. I don't know if you're in the same grid operator as the D.C. area, but, there's been a lot of concerns in the D.C. area about power constraints, not only on constraints on transmitting power to all these new data centers, but just the capacity, the sheer volume of energy needed to keep all these things running. Do you guys have are you butting up against any energy concerns with these 6, or do you have... are you building more energy infrastructure? Do you have plans for more? Any other green transitions or anything you're thinking about for these projects?
There will have to be energy upgrades in order for these to be powered on. Again, though, we felt like this was a teaspoon approach of instead of going for the whole cup. It's easier for us to solve. The big thing about energy, and I think we're going to see, we see these companies, and I've heard my contemporaries in the industry say, like, it's going to be the industry that's going to have to come to the rescue to figure this out. Just because power is not unlimited everywhere. We are taking a much smaller approach. I always felt this is kind of the glass ceiling for us, if you will, of where we felt our comfortability would be. And we've reached that, and we're happy with the vendors we have. Now it's about rounding out our community. It's about the the jobs that will be created for building it, for maintaining these facilities, the people that will work with their hands, as well as the data center professionals, and making this an entire community, and really cashing in on all the opportunities that will come with this. The HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical.
Yeah. That's probably a good bet to take, right? You know, hit a ceiling mark and don't plan to go beyond it, right? Like, we can support this much. Let's not push it, right? Because like you said, power concerns, there's just a lot that comes with hitting that capacity. So speaking of Washington, D.C., just to kind of close everything out here, have any of these tenants that approached you for this project, or are there other people interested in your area that are coming to you because the Washington, D.C. region is too full?
We have the advantage of where we're located, right? You know, we are adjacent to Northern Virginia. We understand that we have Equinix having the network access point here in the county. It makes our connectivity even better. So we know that the market was coming our way. It was really for us a chance we have one opportunity to do this correctly. And I work very hard to make sure we stay focused on that. What's the best decisions we can make to make this work for Culpeper? We still want Culpeper to be Culpeper. That's what we love here. We love our greenery, we love our farms, and we love our urbanized area as well. So trying to keep that all in mind, knowing that the market was coming, and the best we could do to prepare for it.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot of work ahead of you guys there. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of data center projects that will not only be looking to build, but knock on the door to expand it. So, Brian, again, thanks for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about the future of data center construction in the United States and beyond, you can read all about it at the Register.